What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to Fruits Basket Episode 1. I know next to nothing about this series. All I know is that it's a shoujo anime, is touted as a really good like romance anime, that kind of thing. I think it has something to do with the Chinese zodiac, but I've heard a lot of good things, and ever since I decided I was going to be reacting to this, I've sort of kept away from any spoilers or details about what is going on in the show. I know there are two versions of the anime adaptation. I'm going to be watching the one that started in 2019. If that's a mistake, let me know. I don't know the exact opinions on the two. Just from what I could see, it seems like this one actually fully adapted the series where the original one did not. But with that, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into this. Alright, let's see how this starts. Okay. Oh, looks like the Zodiac. All right. Ooh. Okay. Huh. I'm already incredibly intrigued. Oh. Huh. Okay. Interesting opening. I really like the vibe. Okay, think this is our main character? Oh. Dead mom? And she's living out of a tent. Is she homeless? Okay. Living alone in the woods and has a dead mom. That's what I'm gathering here. Wild. Wild for a start. She doesn't seem too perturbed by this, though. Alright, nearby house. Oh, she wasn't aware that there was a house here? Anyways, she's sort of just trespassing. This guy's pretty chill. Okay. Both of these people are really chill about her just being here, but okay. Oh. Okay. I don't think I know about this. Is this an actual thing? I guess it ties into that initial opening thing, because the woman was holding, I guess, a cat. Yeah, okay. That inviting to a banquet thing. Hmm. Okay, therefore the cat wasn't able to make it to the banquet. I honestly don't know that much about the Chinese zodiac, so I'm very curious to see what I'll learn from this. Aww. Aww. What? Okay. Oh my god, okay. That's cute. Huh. Alright, I'm taking it that based on images I've seen that I think this is the main trio. Okay. Happening upon the house of her classmate. All right. So it's clearly not anywhere near public knowledge that she is homeless. Prince? Okay. What? Oh my god. Is the prince is the prince this is very silly already. I sort of love it. Yeah, scary. God. Okay, so he's known as the prince of the freshman year. Or the prince of the school by the freshman year, was it? I don't know. I'll have to double check her later. Ooh. Uh, what? Oh my god. The Interesting. So she is friends with the delinquents, I guess? Huh. What? Oh my god. A princely scuttle. That's great. Okay. Okay, they're really solid cooks then. Okay, she is then, I guess. Okay, she has a job. Okay, I guess they don't know that she is homeless. Right, yeah, okay, she's keeping a secret. Understandable. I love the vibes off of her friends. Oh, wow, she's a motorcycle girl? Okay. Alright, where's she rushing to? Running into each other again. Classic. More like you found them yourself. Okay. Interesting. Oh. Oh, okay. That's cool. Hmm. Huh. Hmm. I really like this backing track. Ooh. Dramatic vibe change. Well, not change too much, but rise in vibe. Classic picking something out of her hair move. Yeah, okay. I can see why people refer to him as the prince of the school. Oh, flashback. Wow, okay, so her father's been dead that long. Single mother supporting a child, geez, okay. Hmm. Okay, so developed cooking from an early age, it seems. Oh, fuck, okay. Shit. How long ago did that happen? She looks relatively young, maybe middle school? Okay. Why isn't she living there anymore? Oh. Oh. Okay, just unfortunate circumstances. Deemed her friends weren't good enough. Wow, okay. Oh, Jesus. Wow, okay. Interesting side to her personality. All right, I see where this is going. She's homeless and is really a good cook. They have a big house and need a cook. Okay. Yeah. All right, and they're going to figure out that she's homeless, yeah. Hmm. God. Yeah, you're not looking after yourself. How are you going to react to this? What? Laughing at her? Oh my god. He's still laughing. Okay, she's just coming out and asking? Huh. Yeah, that's not a good idea. Oh, that is a horrible statement. And her health is horrible, it would seem. Okay, so she really is a trooper. Oh my god. They really need help. Ooh, what's that about? Yeah, how can you tell? All right. Jesus. Of course her mind goes there. Oh, Jesus. Okay, this guy is capable of being tactful sometimes, it would seem. Hmm. Uh-huh. Oh, fuck. Shit. I did not expect to get this serious this quick. The only morning I didn't say it. Of fucking course. Hoping for a better future for her daughter. Hmm. Fuck. Okay, burdened by her own perceived expectations of her mother and wanting to live up to that. Oh my god, okay. Anything to say? Yeah, she masks it well. Oh? I suppose. Huh. That is a way to look at it. Mmm, glowing eyes. What? Oh, is he the rat? Ooh, I love the supernatural element to this. Hmm? Ugh. Dreaming about either a memory or just about her mother, honestly. Oh, interesting. Curious who that was. It's entirely likely that it's one of these two. Whose clothes is she wearing? And he's already dug it up. With the power of rats. Hmm. Yep, she's living here. They have a lot to gain. Oh god, she's really dependent on not causing people trouble. Yeah. Okay. The beginning of the romance. Just be you. Yeah, you could say that. There is something about hugging. I'm very curious to see what that's about. That is a good question. What? What is happening? Did he jump through the roof? Rat boy! Oh god, she's getting thrown headfirst into this. Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay, got hugged. Oh, they're a cat. Okay. Oh god. Oh, and she made contact with them as well. Okay, rat, and is that fox? Dog? No, that's dog. That's dog. I need to familiarize myself with the Chinese zodiac more. What is happening? Oh, okay, it's the end of the episode. Alright. Let's see if this is the opening or ending. I guess I won't be able to tell just from it alone, but... Ooh. Alright, we're just seeing some of the other characters. Presumably the rest of the Zodiac. Alright, they're probably Rabbit. I'm loving this so far. Oh. A pair? Interesting. Sort of Gemini vibe. I'm very curious to see how quickly they'll be introducing all of these characters. This feels more like an ending to me, but who's to say? Interesting having the little bit of English in the lyrics. All right. So I really, really liked this first episode. I didn't really know what to expect going in. As I mentioned at the beginning, I knew that it had something to do with the Zodiac, and I was pretty sure that more specifically, a lot of the characters were directly representative of each of the Zodiac animals, if not literally the Zodiac itself as a collection of entities. After seeing the end of this episode, I do also think I vaguely recall hearing at one point something about like intimate contact causing them to turn into animals or something, but I only vaguely recall that and don't know the specifics of it. But for the sake of not spending too much time here, because there's a lot I could talk about, I'm not going to focus too much on the Zodiac members for now. I'm just going to call them that until I have a better name for them, because presumably in the next episode and onwards, they will explain a lot of what's going on there. For this episode, I'm mainly going to focus on Honda, or whatever I should call her. I'm still picking up the names, so bear with me. Obviously, as our main character, she had a lot of focus in this episode, and we really got to know her quite well in this, I think. Starting off, our first impression of her is her starting her day, coming out of her tent, saying goodbye to the picture of her mom, and it immediately tells us a lot about her, because this immediately implies to us dead mom, homeless. The exact details we don't get until later, but it gives us the groundwork immediately. It's incredibly efficient storytelling. And something else that is very interesting about it is her attitude. When no one else is around, she is, regardless of her circumstances, seemingly quite happy, energetic. She's smiling while looking up at the sky, coming up to the cliffside, looking out at the city with joy, that kind of thing. Now, of course, later in the episode, we do learn that to an extent, this is her putting on a front, but the fact that she isn't around anyone at this point does show that she does legitimately have that inner joy and whimsy in her life. She isn't secretly just depressed, but she definitely has some trauma and is not in a good spot currently. We also very quickly learn that she seems like she can be fairly airheaded at times, or at the very least not necessarily think things through always, as spotting a house she's never seen before in the forest nearby where she's camped out, she just wanders onto the property and looks inside. Which, sure, if you live in a fairly safe area where break-ins and robberies and stuff aren't as common and therefore people are less protective of their homes, that kind of thing, potentially it's not as big a deal to just wander onto someone's property. But it is still sort of surprising that she just casually strolls in and starts looking at the stuff of the people here. And we very quickly see that she can be a little bit ditzy at times. Whenever she's caught off guard, she sort of freezes up and sort of panics a little bit, and her default seems to be to going to apologizing. We see it multiple times throughout the episode where she's caught off guard and she just very quickly is like, oh, I'm sorry, and sort of panics. In some cases, it's sort of warranted. In other cases, it clearly is more just a habit of hers, that kind of thing. But then we begin to get a glimpse at her backstory in the form of a story that her mother would tell her, talking about the Zodiac and a story related to it and how a banquet was held and the rat tricked the cat into not making it to the banquet. And her immediate reaction to that is to feel sorry for the cat and cry, and being a little kid, have the reaction to want to be a cat now, to be representative of the cat and sort of help it out and make sure it feels represented almost. Which is very goofy because the implication there is, you know, changing her birthday almost. Because in actuality, she, based on her birth date and the Zodiac and stuff, would be a dog. But so at this point, we're able to sort of build a fairly concrete framework of who she is as a person, at least on the surface. We're able to dig down a little deeper pretty quickly here later in the episode, but for now, this works as a very good framework for how she interacts with people, how she acts normally, that kind of thing. Where one of her interests lie, she already knows a lot about the Zodiac and that kind of thing. And even knowing a bit of the lore of it because of stories her mother would tell her. And clearly her love of the cat has continued, seeing as we have a moment when she's looking at the little Zodiac knickknacks that are at the house, and she sort of disappointedly acknowledges that there isn't a cat represented there. Which sort of the vibe I take off of that, personally, is that she is, as we've seen, a very caring person, someone who wants everyone to be taken care of and understood and seen. She doesn't necessarily like people to be ostracized. We can hypothetically, if we want to sort of dig into it, can see some of that in her choice of friends. Once we get to school, we see that clearly her two closest friends are sort of the oddball delinquents of the school, or at least of her class. One of which, the blonde one, which I forget the name of, I forget both their names right now, I'll go back and check later, seems to be more the classic sort of delinquent vibe. She's sort of moody, a little aggressive. There was a comment at one point about her owning a motorcycle, that kind of thing. While the other one is more so just this deadpan, sort of creepy vibe, but that I absolutely love. What it sort of goes to show is there's this contrast between her and her friends. She is this much more classically sociable, happy-go-lucky person, but whether it is a conscious choice or not, whether she just naturally gravitated to them or otherwise, she found herself associating with and being close friends with people that are more the social outcasts, which builds just a sort of fun dynamic from the start. We see how they can help each other out and they work well together very quickly by the fact that the two friends are able to sort of back her up. They have a bit more of a backbone than her. They're able to scare people away when they're messing with her, that kind of thing. Where she, on the surface at least, is a little more put together, a little bit more capable of like everyday activities, that kind of thing. And they all clearly care about each other, so it's nice. But to get back to what I was sort of tying this to, clearly she cares about people and things that are the outcasts, the delinquents, because both in the past and present, she is clearly drawn to and sympathizes and empathizes with the cat of the Zodiac, the one left out, that kind of thing. And in her social life, she finds herself becoming close friends with the people who are in some way outside the usual social circles. It's just an interesting little tidbit I picked up. I don't know how intentional it is, but it feels cohesive enough to be intentional. And it's during her time at school in this episode that we catch wind that she has a job and she's working a lot, that supposedly she's paying her own tuition, and while her friends don't understand that she is living out of a tent in the woods and therefore is paying for everything she has to do herself, and she clearly hasn't told them that she is living in the woods in a tent. So it shows that in some degree, she is either shameful or embarrassed about that fact. But as we begin to see later in the episode, I believe it is much less so that she is embarrassed or ashamed of her circumstance. There is definitely a level of that. But I believe that the more important part of why she doesn't want to tell anyone is because she does not want to be a burden. She does not want to ever be imposing on others, being someone who is taking more than she is giving, that kind of thing. We see it constantly, even if it's not outright said to us. There are a ton of little things she's doing to help the people around her, to lighten the load of the people taking care of her. One of the most explicit cases of it is when we see aspects of her past when she was still living with her alive mother. Her mom was a single mother who was working to pay the bills, and so was constantly coming home tired and exhausted and stuff. So she clearly started learning how to cook, got quite good at it. That's where her skill at cooking came from, was she would be making the meals so that her mother wouldn't have to. We also have a moment in one of the flashbacks where she's holding a book labeled household accounts, so it seems she was also doing an amount of the financing of the household. And we also have it mentioned that she is good at like household chores and cleaning and stuff. So I think it's safe to say that she was probably also doing that in the household, which all just point to this fact that she wants to help people and she does not want to be a burden herself. But the place that this aspect of her, of not wanting to be a burden, is most obvious and clear and explicit is in the flashback explaining why she ended up homeless. Rather than it being a circumstance where all of her family members are dead, she has no one to take care of her. She has a grandfather who took her in, but due to some unfortunately planned circumstances, their house is under some long-term renovations to the point that they can't live in the house currently, and the grandfather is going to be living in the house of some family, but there apparently isn't enough room for her, so the grandfather asks her, maybe a friend of yours could, let you stay with them for the duration of the renovations. But I get the vibe that if she had honestly said, I don't really have anyone who would be capable of supporting me, that the grandfather would try to make something work. I don't get the vibe that he is neglectful or cruel in any way. He was basically just saying, the current plan isn't ideal for both of us. If you have an alternative, that would be better. But what she hears isn't, hey, it's fine if you don't have anything in mind that could work instead. We can make it work. It just is going to be a bit cramped and a little complicated. She hears, oh, if I join him, I'm going to be a burden. I'm going to be taking up too much space, and that would be bad. So her thoughts then go to, could anybody take me in? Well, no, my friends don't have the room either. So, all right, that's fine. I'll just live on my own in a tent and work to survive. I don't need to burden anyone. I will just, in high school, support myself with no home. That is not a healthy or normal response to this, and it hammers in the final nail in the coffin of the fact that she clearly has some level of unhealthy view of herself to believe that if she is not doing something for others, that she is a burden. That is the vibe I get here, which isn't necessarily the most original character. There are plenty of characters that match it vibe-wise, but this is a very well executed version of it. And we already in this episode can see the toll that this lifestyle is taking on her. She believes that she can get through this, that this is fine. She's going to be living on her own eventually someday, so she might as well just figure out how to do it now, telling herself she can handle this. But we see that she goes straight from school to work, where she works harder than anyone else, and then goes home and, already exhausted, does any homework she has, goes to sleep, repeats the process. And in this episode, she clearly begins to hit a bit of a breaking point. She's feverish, she almost faints a few times, and only with the intervention of the two Zodiac guys, which I need to find the names of again, but only with their intervention and telling her that they can live at their house, does she finally begin to get a little bit of rest. And so, of course, another thing this shows us is how much of a hard worker she is. She is incredibly diligent, incredibly hardworking, but debatably for a lot of the wrong reasons. But it's around this time as well where she's finally sort of succumbed to the fact that she has a fever, she's almost fainted, and is going to be staying the night at the home of Yuki and his cousin, that we have a couple lines that dive into this even a little deeper and add sort of another layer to it. Her mother probably had a relatively complicated life of her own in the sense that she never got to high school. She only finished middle school and then never went to high school, eventually became a mother, that kind of thing, and then died. And it was something vocalized by her mother that she wants her daughter to be able to have that high school experience, that better life that she never had. It's a sign of a really good parent. Unfortunately, she took it the wrong way, or at least internalized it the wrong way, in the sense of rather than just seeing, oh, my mother wants a better life for me, she seems to almost have built up this internal expectation of herself to fulfill all the things that her mother expected of her, or at least she perceived her mother to expect of her. And we can see that this is one of her major motivating factors. Her current circumstance is just the biggest roadblock she's hit so far, but clearly one of her biggest motivators consciously is wanting to live that life her mother wasn't able to have that high school life experience, and showing just how hyper-focused in on achieving that. There's a line where she says, I don't have time to succumb to this fever, which comes immediately after we learn that that was a thing, that her mother wanted her to have this high school life, which basically just shows that she, to an unreasonable degree, is determined to fulfill these wishes and expectations that she more so has placed upon herself than anything. And it tells us that she views laying down and recovering from a fever to be a waste of time. She is wasting time that she could be spending achieving something, fulfilling her mother's wishes. But she doesn't seem to realize that if she is working herself to the bone, getting sick constantly, struggling to survive, that's not the life her mother wanted for her. She wanted her daughter to be happy, to have a fulfilling life, to have experiences that fulfill her, that her mother never had the opportunity to have. And that is not working yourself to the bone. And we see near the end of the episode that there is this sort of repeated thought of people telling her, just be yourself. You don't have to overwork yourself. You don't need to do everything. Just be yourself, which I have a feeling will probably be a major element to whatever arc she goes along, of accepting that she as a person has value. She doesn't need to provide additional value. She just as herself is enough. And I'm excited to see sort of where that goes. And that very clearly is sort of the core of what we see of her character in this episode. But the last thing I'd like to acknowledge about her is the moment when they find her tent buried in the landslide that happened or whatever, because it is very telling the exact wording she chooses when she panically is trying to dig up her stuff. Her concern is not that all of her things are buried and it's going to be annoying to get them out. Rather, she is panically digging away at the dirt, despite being already feverish and unhealthy right now, as she panically says, my mom is buried under there, she won't be able to breathe under all of this dirt. She's talking about the picture of her mother as if it is her mother, which clearly speaks to a lot of unresolved trauma relating the death of her mother. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't realistically get into the exact details of what that exactly means, how that manifested, anything like that, but I know enough to recognize that that is some unresolved trauma. Now then, that is sort of the focus of what I want to talk about, but to touch on a few of the other details that presumably we will get more of in later episodes, I want to talk about the 3 members of the Zodiac that we met in this episode. We met the rat and the dog, and we also met the cat, it would seem. Going by order of appearance, we have Shigure, who is the dog. He's a very interesting character to me. He very much is a goofy guy, and I'm intrigued by sort of the duality of his character, where between his own actions and the way other people talk about him, he very much gives off the vibe that in a casual setting, he is a very goofy person, a bit of a flirt, maybe even, and overall just sort of doesn't take anything too seriously. We can see that this is in a lot of ways potentially even to a fault, as we see that his first reaction to Honda living in a tent is just to laugh about it, and he keeps laughing for a long while. So he clearly, to an extent, is a major goofball, non-serious kind of guy, but then at multiple times in this episode, we could see that a switch sort of flipped, and he suddenly was much more tactful, serious, considerate, that kind of thing. So it shows that he isn't incapable of taking things seriously. And I like that. I'm intrigued to see sort of where that line between him being silly and non-serious to being considerate sort of materializes. But we only see so much of him in this episode. The person we see the most of is Yuki, who is the rat, which I quite enjoy. I really enjoy that our main love interest here is the rat. And Yuki very much interests me as a character so far. We don't get a lot about him, just because more so than anything, we're getting the perspective of someone from the outside looking at him, and he is very much a sort of enigmatic figure so far. At school, he holds this position of a very attractive and handsome freshman boy who has gained the title of Prince of the School, despite only being a freshman, and already has essentially a fan club, who is so overprotective of him that seeing Honda come to school with him is enough to antagonize them against her. But at the same time, we also have interesting sort of mysterious rumors about him of like a time when an upperclassman, a second year I think it was, confessed their love to him, tried to hug him, and he basically just pushed them away and refused to accept them. And obviously by the end of the episode we learned that a lot of that has to do with the fact that when hugged or whatever, he would turn into a rat and that would not be something good to be publicly known, presumably. But overall, his general demeanor around the school and in general is that of a relatively unassuming but very attractive and loved person who has a clear capacity to care about people in sort of a casual degree, but also having this air of mystery to him for obvious reason. And something that sort of intrigues me is one of our first real looks at who he is as a person is when Honda and Yuki are walking home from school. He has offered for them to walk home together, and they get onto the subject of the Zodiac again. And he talks about the fact that the cat is sort of idiotic and a fool and not someone to be pitied, that kind of thing. Which at first was really sort of complicated and interesting to me because we didn't know yet what Zodiac he was. So one thought I had was maybe he's essentially talking about himself if he was the cat, that kind of thing. But given the context that he is the rat, it immediately complicates things, because if we're to take the story about the rat tricking the cat as truthful in some way, shape, or form, it means that he is talking bad about a person that he actively and intentionally tricked to ostracize. Even if that isn't the actual intent, that's effectively what is happening, which adds a sort of complicated layer to his character that makes him not necessarily just all kindness and beauty and intrigue, but also being sort of potentially even a little bit of a bully to the cat. But with the context of the very end of the episode, where we pretty much in the last few moments meet the cat, which I don't know if we got his name. I'll just refer to him as the cat for now. The cat arrives by bursting through the roof to seemingly fight Yuki. Seemingly this isn't the first time they fought. They make idle reference to last time. They clearly do not have a great relationship, and it immediately recolors again Yuki's words about the cat to be different once more, in the sense that he's effectively talking about someone that he presumably a long time ago tricked. They got into a lot of fights afterwards, and they've basically been butting heads ever since. So rather than him saying all these bad things about the cat, being that he is just further insulting someone who he tricked and ostracized, it is actually him just complaining about someone he gets into constant fights with, which isn't necessarily too much better, but until we learn more of the details of the backstory and about who the cat as a person is, it implies enough of a backstory that is complicated enough that there probably is more to it than just that. But that also serves as a perfect transition to the cat. I already described his entrance, which is wild. Pretty much the entirety of this scene, from his arrival to him turning into a cat, feels like it's out of an entirely different show, where before it very much feels like a shoujo romance type thing with a supernatural element. This brief interaction with him bursting through the roof and the banter between him and Yuki, it feels like we're suddenly diving into like a shonen battle anime or something, which I love as just a contrast. Very clearly, the cat, at least on the surface, or at least when interacting with Yuki, is very hot-headed, very aggressive, very sort of blunt, that kind of thing. And I'm a big fan of it. I'm excited to see more of him once things sort of settle down and presumably they explain what the hell is going on to Honda. But with that, I think I will leave things there. I think I covered sort of my initial thoughts on all of the characters and that kind of thing. I'm really excited to get into the future episodes going forward. But for now, I'm going to leave things here. This was a really solid first episode, as I have said. If I got any of the names wrong, or I should be using the other name of any character, feel free to let me know in the comments. I just used the first names I could remember or find while scrubbing through afterwards. It's gonna take me a minute to pick up all the names because I'm just bad with names, so bear with me on that. But overall, really enjoyed this, excited to see where it goes. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want more. Leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.